fans, comic geeks, and all the nerds in between. My name is Megan, and today I have a character breakdown for you for a character that we all know. We all may love or hate. I don't know. I freaking love a villain, so I'm going to tell you all about this character. The character is actually Wilson Fisk, which you probably already know because you clicked the video. So, Wilson Fisk. He first showed up in Amazing Spider-Man number 50 in April of 1967. He was created by Stan Lee and John Romita. Wilson Fisk didn't exactly get off to a great start in his life. He grew up in a really dysfunctional home where his parents were always fighting and things just didn't get easier at school because he was being bullied a lot for his being overweight. By that time he was just 12, he'd already committed his first unaliving. So he started off pretty early. From early on, Fisk was obsessed with being the best at whatever he did. He believed raw strength was the key to power in the criminal world, so he pushed himself hard, training in bodybuilding and different fighting styles, eventually focusing on sumo. That interest also sparked a broader fascination with Asian culture. At the same time, he knew brains mattered just as much as muscle. Since he came from a poor background and didn't get much formal education, he basically taught himself, grabbing books however he could, even stealing them sometimes. He studied a lot, but political science really clicked for him. He figured out that organized criminals, like a political machine, would give him an edge. By 15, he was already running a growing gang so efficiently that people started calling him the Kingpin of crime. He eventually started working as muscle for the Magia boss Don Rigoletto. Around the time, he became close with Miles Morales, not that Miles Morales, a completely different Miles Morales, which is, alright, who once saved his life in prison. Fisk never forgot that and felt like he owed him forever. With Morales by his side, Fisk made his move, took over Rigoletto's operation, and had him taken out. Later, Morales left the life behind, and Fisk made sure to wipe any trace of his criminal past. Meanwhile, people kept calling Fisk Kingpin, at first mockingly, but it stuck, obviously. Fisk was smart about money too. He funneled his illegal earnings into legit businesses, starting with a spice import company. Even after building a massive empire, he liked to publicly play it off as if he was just a humble spice dealer. Over time, he became a big name in New York society, and that's when he met Vanessa. He fell hard, married her, and for once found some kind of peace. They had a son, Richard, soon after. Years later, Fisk had become one of the most powerful crime bosses around. When Spider-Man briefly retired, Fisk saw his chance. He brought together a bunch of criminal groups under his leadership and kicked off a massive crime wave in New York. But things fell apart when Spider-Man came back and exposed him publicly thanks to a failed attempt to silence newspaper publisher J. Jonah Jameson. From there, Fisk's life was a constant cycle of power moves and setbacks. He clashed repeatedly with heroes like Daredevil, dealt with betrayals, including from his own son, and even got tangled up with groups like Hydra, though he backed out when he realized he wasn't really in control. At one point, Vanessa could not take his criminal life anymore and forced him to quit or lose her. He chose her and they left for Japan. But when she was kidnapped and seemingly killed by his own organization, Fisk snapped and came roaring back, more ruthless than ever. He even turned in other criminals just to eliminate competition and rebuild his empire even stronger. Over the years, Fisk kept trying to balance crime, businesses, and even politics. He manipulated elections, ran parts of cities, and constantly battled Daredevil, who lived in his head rent-free from the get-go, even going as far as ruining Matt Murdock's life when he discovered his secret identity. Still, Daredevil always managed to push back. Fisk lost everything more than once, his empire, his family, even his sanity at times. He was betrayed, nearly killed, and forced to rebuild from scratch over and over. He tried expanding into new cities, made alliances with assassins and supervillains, and even faked his own death at one point. Eventually, he clawed his way back to power again, this time as the mayor of New York. He used that position to go after vigilantes like Spider-Man and Daredevil, twisting the system to serve his own goals, which is what we see happening in Daredevil Born Again. And it's like, if you haven't read Devil's Reign in the comics, that is my favorite event of all time, and you absolutely should. But even then, things didn't stay stable. He got outmaneuvered, exposed, and beaten again. In the end, after everything, wars, betrayals, deaths, comebacks, Fisk actually tried stepping away from the crime. After being possessed and later freed from a demonic force named Greed, he showed signs of regret and started dismantling parts of his empire. Whether that change sticks, it's always up in the air with someone like Kingpin. Now, Vanessa and Kingpin are no longer together, and she's not even alive. But that brings us to his new and current wife, Typhoid Mary. Mary is a character with many, many layers to her in the most literal term, but this episode isn't about her, even though we're going to talk quite a bit about her. If you want to learn more about her, check out my channel because I have a breakdown of her as well. But Mary started off as working security for Kingpin, and he treated her terribly, so many times. But Mary isn't your average girl. To put it plainly, she is bananas. Not because of her mental illness, but because of who she is. So she married Kingpin and actually became the first lady of New York when Kingpin was mayor. Of course, Kingpin's reign as mayor didn't last, and the two left town when things got real bad. Where did they go, you ask? Well, none other than Krakoa, actually. You see, Mary is actually a mutant, and she has Krakoan citizenship, and by marriage, Kingpin also has its citizenship. She was able to extend it to him. They arrived in Krakoa at the exact worst time because it was in time for the Hellfire Gala, which, as some of you may know, was an absolute disaster. It resulted in many deaths, much destruction, and Mary being separated from Fisk for a time. But they got back together, and she worked as Kingpin's bodyguard and his wife during New York's supervillain gang war. So Kingpin comes with so many layers as a character. We've seen so many different stories and events and things with him, and I think he's being brought to life perfectly by Vincent D'Onofrio in Daredevil Born Again. So that's all I have to say on Kingpin. That is my breakdown of Kingpin. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will like and subscribe, and I hope you have a marvelous day.